All right, everyone, today is an exciting day. We are gonna be back on the Twitch streets streaming. It's been a while, of course, being in the US, can't play on party poker and stream, but I'm gonna shout out our boys Raise Your Edge with Mariano5, one of the head coaches, as well as Fallout86. But today, Mariano5 and I are gonna discuss the new course released by Raise Your Edge. For those of you who don't know, I played a lot of tournaments in my career over the 17 years roughly of playing poker, but cash games is where kind of started. I played as big as 1K, 2K, no limit, play a regular 200, 400 game, and yeah, so we're gonna discuss some of the strategies and walk through the course with you guys over there. So that is, well, it's crazy, crazy little tight here in the car. We're driving over to the office. We're gonna have that, not really a podcast, it's a Twitch stream. We'll do live questions, it'll be fun, and try to give you guys a schedule upcoming when we'll do more Twitch streams. So let's get over to the office. Raise Your Edge, Ben CB, all the boys, shout out to you guys for all the work you do, and we're going to discuss that as well as give you guys some discount info if you're interested. So check that in the show more, and we'll show you a little bit of the video. So let's do it. All right, we made it to the office, and we are going to put the Mariano5 video up. From YouTube. Flow Show Studios ready for action. And there's a look at what we just did, a podcast on, we did it on Twitch, but now we're gonna upload it to YouTube. And again, guys, Raise Your Edge, big shout out to them, Ben CB, the boys, Mariano5 and Fallout86 for making the cash game course. It is a treat to work with these guys. I have not done the cash out course, I'm sorry, the live cash course yet, but I am going to do that, and I'm actually going to start it today. I will keep you guys in touch on that. If you have questions, please ask in the show more below. You can check the discount for that, as well as you can ask questions, comments, feedback on it if you try it, or if you want to know more about it, or if you like more of this type of content, we'll do more. And we will be very soon coming to you for some live Twitch streams. I know I miss it. I can't wait to do it. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you in Montreal for some live vlogs. We'll have Twitch streams in between. My baby boys come in. You guys rock. Thank you so much. And if you like this stuff, please hit the subscribe button. It is free to you on YouTube, and we'll continue to grow and flow and show what we can do. So thanks for watching, and see you soon. All right, welcome everyone. Hope you are doing well. It feels good to be back on Twitch. Been a while. I am joined by Mariano5, Michael Chalmers. Michael, how are you?
Good, buddy. What's going on?
Well, you tell me. We're here to dive into Raise Your Edge and cash. So this is pretty exciting. Being a player that plays both cash games and tournaments, it's one of those things. It's a little bit tricky, I think, to do both, but it's important to have the tools and understanding of both. So, Raise Your Edge obviously has been dominant by tournaments. Now they have the cash game course. I know this was a long time coming, so interested to talk to you about, run through the course, as well as discuss your background, and then we can maybe go through some examples or talk a little bit of strategy as well. So why don't we first give the viewers a little background on yourself, and then we'll dive into the course.
Yeah, sounds good for sure. Yeah, so I've been playing poker since about 2005. I just started with buddies, playing home games, as I'm sure a lot of people did. And then I found PokerStars pretty shortly after, so I started playing tournaments on there, just low stakes with friends as well. And I was also playing some 1-2 at the live casinos here during that time, and also some 4-8 limit as well. So yeah, I mean, I did that just for fun for 2 or 3 years, and then in about 2009, I was able to start making enough just playing low stakes tourneys online on Full Tilt and Stars to quit my job. I was landscaping at the time, so yeah, I was making enough to quit my job, and then went from there. The first couple of years, it was a bit of a joke, to be honest, for myself, because I was really not taking the game seriously. Like I really wasn't aware of how much volume you had to put in, or the fact that you should be studying the game. But the games were so soft back then, online, at least the levels I was playing, which would be like between $10 and $50 tournaments. So I was able to make enough to live and save a bit of money just playing, 3 or 4 tables. And then, was it 2012? I started playing a bit more cash games. I started playing cash games online a bit more as well. There's a local site here called Play Now, which had pretty good games. It still does. So I started playing on there basically full time, and it was around that time that I actually hired my first coach and decided, I should probably start taking this thing seriously because the games were getting a bit tougher. And I realized that if I wanted to do something with it long term, I'd definitely have to put more energy into it. So that was kind of the beginning of my actual poker study from 2012 on. So yeah, since then I've just been playing mainly online cash, and then I also played sit and goes hypers for a bit. That's where I met Ben. We were in a hyper sit and go group.
What stakes were you playing for those when you were running into Ben?
I was playing between 15 and 60s and some hundreds on stars, but I only did that for, I guess it was about 9 months to a year, which was fine. Like I learned a lot about ICM and short stack play, but it definitely wasn't something I wanted to continue doing long term, and especially because they also raised the rake on stars on those hypers, so I'm not really sure what the environment. I mean, I assume people are still grinding those, but I think a lot of the regs definitely left. Yeah, and then so after that, I was still playing some online cash and a little bit of tourneys here and there, but then I decided to start playing live more. I moved into Vancouver, which is the nearest city to my hometown. So yeah, for the past 2 years, I've just been playing full-time live. They got a 2-5 game that runs regularly here in Vancouver, so I just played that full-time.
And okay, so and also I want to make sure I gotta remember we're on Twitch because it's I love Twitch. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but we got live chat. I don't know if you have that up on the side by any chance. So we're gonna try to follow along with you guys as well. Okay. Nate Burrows, good to see you. I want to shout some guys out. We're gonna take a couple hours here, just kind of run through the course, talk about some cash game, maybe the advantages on cash game versus tournaments, how it's all different. And I see Nate Burrows asking if you're from BC.
Yeah. I'm from the Sunshine Coast. If he knows where that is, right beside Vancouver.
Very nice. So I welcome in. Please don't call me JabFlop123. Guilber83. A lot of nuts hand as well. Some familiar faces. And we're going to try to get back on. Again, being in the U.S., it is a little tough with the Twitch, as you guys know. Garan's Luck, toss me a pork chop. Good to see everybody. JJ Corrado, legend. Good to see you guys. So we will do a mixture of things today. If you guys have questions for myself about cash games or Mariano5, what does that name stand for? I love that name. It's got a nice ring to it. What's the actual...
It's actually named after a famous skateboarder, because I'm big into skateboarding, or I was when I was younger. Okay. So it's this guy. His name's Guy Mariano. He's like a really famous street skateboarder from LA. Nice. So it doesn't have too much Gibson's. Yeah, I live right beside Gibson's. Roberts Creek is where I'm from. Okay. I guess that guy knows where I'm from.
Awesome. Well, there you go. Mariano5 in the building. So how did it come? Well, we just got a subscriber. What's up, brother? Pappy Van Winkle, 26 in a row, 26 months. Really appreciate that. Thank you for the subscription. Good to see you, man. XL Crusher, hello. Tough spot. All right, people are starting to roll in. It's good to be back, man. I missed this. I missed Twitch. I forget how fun it is. It's like, honestly, maybe we should do, what could be fun sometimes is to go through like a study session maybe and do it while we're live and just kind of have Twitch in the background. I think that's part of what I love so much about streaming. When I play tournaments, it's not lonely, it's fun. So if people are up for it, maybe we could do that once in a while. We do like a hand review from a cash game online, or we talk about a live spot, or maybe even a hand that you have. I'm sure you have a ton of hand histories from playing live. Yeah. Like there's actually, that could be fun. We could do 1 or 2 interesting spots. Maybe you have a note on your phone or one of the hands. I mean, it's a little harder when you don't have the graphics up for people to follow, of course. But we could maybe talk about a spot or 2. Tree Leaves, good to see you, man. And we're gonna let's dive into the course a bit here. I think there's going to be a lot of great questions, but let's just sort of run through the overview on how this course works. So I see the introduction here. I guess that's just sort of talk to us about what that is. It just sort of goes through everything.
Yeah, so the introduction will just be what the course is about, what you can expect, and just a bit of our philosophy on how to approach the course, how to study it, and then approaching the game is just a video about things you can do off the table to prepare yourself for the in game. So definitely tailored to newer players as well, just so they're not, coming into the game and having a bunch of unknowns and being really nervous. So, some of the things you can expect and some of the, just things about being courteous and tipping and not slow rolling and that type of thing. And then in the mindset, just going through some things you can do, again, off the tables to just help prepare you for your sessions. And of course, Ben has the full mindset course out as well. So you definitely want to check that out. But I mean, as you know, the mental game is such a huge aspect of poker in all areas. So definitely something you want to take advantage of.
Absolutely. I can't explain. I would say we got another sub. What's going on? VPRE Music, that's the man Vadran who set it all up, and we honestly have no shot without Vadran. So 38 months in a row is a lot. That is a lot. Thank you. Welcome in. Appreciate the sub. The mindset is one of those things. Like if you were to tell me a poker player, you give me like one of the most talented players in the world, but then you give a guy who's like a pretty good player, winning player, does the things right, gets good sleep, gets good rest, knows how to handle beats, has good bankroll management, game selection. It's a formula, it's the same thing with the athletes in the world out there. You talk about the best players in a given sport. A lot of the times there's more talented people out there, but having the work ethic, the drive, the focus, the mental, there's so many things that go in, and that's no different for cash. I'm sure this is really cool that this touches on that and shows that. And I'm sure you could speak to some volumes on that. I'm sure you've seen coming up or at your local game, good players, but when they tilt, it's crazy and they blow up, or they just don't have all the components. So maybe talk a little bit. What do you think is the most important in terms of mindset, or maybe something that's the viewers at home might be overlooking that's like lower hanging fruit than some other stuff that might be a good adjustment?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with all the stuff you just said. I was actually thinking about that coming in about talking about that because, yeah, it's just the same thing where it really comes down to execution and consistency in these games, and especially in cash games, because like you say, you'll see some guys who have a ton of natural talent and they're really good, aggressive players, but if you're blowing up 2 or 3 times a week or even once or twice a week in a cash game, that can just ruin your entire win rate, So I think people really overlook that. And then you can have guys who are steady and consistent, and they might not be playing every spot to the max EV, but they're not making huge mistakes. So long term, that's going to be your best bet to, move up in stakes and save money. And as far as the things you can do, I mean, I think obviously exercise is huge. Having outlets outside of poker as well, like not just have it as your entire focus, in my opinion, is always good, because you're obviously going to go through tough stretches, and you want to have other things outside the game to take your mind off. So I think those two things, exercise and then having the outlets, and of course getting good sleep, is huge too. And yeah, just being able to talk to people, have a support system, other players to talk to as well, is huge.
Absolutely. I'll say, so we were talking a bit before, and I was telling you I like playing any type of cash game. I truly do love it. I think that sometimes people have a hard time adjusting when they play bigger and then they go back, or if they ever, for example, if you're ever with friends or you're just in a game somewhere that you're playing, you have to really be able to adjust to the stakes and not play differently, because that's something that I think is important as well, to really practice how you play. It's not just you gotta be able to, if you think you're playing a bigger game and you get, maybe you're staked, maybe you sell action, but then you go back to another game, you have to be able to separate the two, and also be able to separate. It can be hard if you jump stakes and then go down, and now all of a sudden let's say you lose at a high stake, and then you're back to a game. It's similar to tournaments. If you take a shot or you play bigger, you can kind of mess up your equilibrium on what you're doing. I don't know what's the biggest you've ever played. Do you ever jump stakes, or are you pretty much just consistently crushing? And like you said 1-3-2-5 generally you play live?
Yeah. I just played 2-5 full time, so I've actually never even played higher than that. But I can definitely imagine, yeah, I mean, having to deal with, like you say, if you go into a bigger game and you have more of a role in the line, and then maybe you run really bad in that over the course of even like a year, so even if you're doing better at the smaller games, it can feel like you're treading water, So I guess the main thing is really just to focus on each individual session, each individual hand, and yeah. But I guess I'll obviously at the same time focus on the long term, because that's the thing about live poker, is that it's really tough for a lot of people, because you have to have so much patience, because especially if you're learning new concepts and studying new things, it's really easy, in my opinion, to start forcing aggression, because you're learning about spots where you can apply overbets or put the pressure on, but maybe in game, in one particular session, one of those spots might not come up. So you try to apply it to a spot which is kind of similar, but you end up using the wrong combos, stuff like that, right? So I think having a lot of patience is really necessary in live games as well.
Absolutely. It's for me, the biggest thing I've been involved with staking. I've sold pieces. I've bought pieces. I've done a lot of different things, and I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I've seen people, the best players that don't play anymore. I've seen people, for me, I started playing 25 cent, 50 cent on back in the day. I actually on Party Poker. Now I'm back with Party Poker. What up, Brian Glick? B Glick, good to see you. B Glick 23 in there. Congrats on your baby as well. That is something just looking at. I always took the right bankroll management. I was never like, I'm doing pretty well, or I hit a tournament score, I want to go play 25-50. I was always 25 cent, 50 cent, 50 $1, 1, 2 for many years. Even when poker was probably in its heyday, 03, 04, 05. I almost feel like I just missed it, because if I was playing higher at that time, you hear these stories of guys playing 5, 10, 10, 20, 25, 50 at that time were just minting money. But I've just never really been a shot taker, and even when I do get to play in some bigger games, I sell accordingly, or I've done various different deals, but I just never felt the urge to go for it. And I think that's it's good and bad, but I think mostly that just it's more balanced, more stable, and really the thing I would recommend more, and I would imagine you feel the same on that. Of course, if the game's incredible and you get a shot at something, you could always take it and do something accordingly. But I just think that's the people that you see the longevity of the game aren't just firing off shots. The guys that go broke frequently, it's not a really stable way of living, and it's pretty stressful as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm definitely really nitty with my bankroll, and it's something I'll definitely continue to do, because it's worked for me, and I think, as you say, for others, in my opinion, it's the way you want to go. I mean, people obviously have different thresholds for, I guess, pain and stress, but for myself, I never wanted to have, be playing at the table and also be stressed about how this is affecting my life outside the table. So I think the smartest way to do it is just to take it really slow and, get your money, save your money, and slowly build up. Because as you say, there's a lot of players who are unreal players, but they just have way too much gamble. So, the swings are massive. And for anyone on your mental state, I think that's just too much to handle. I mean, some people are sick enough that they can handle that type of stuff, but I definitely can't. Like, I'm super conservative in that manner, and it definitely works for me. It takes all the stress off the game, and it makes the game fun. And yeah, I just find it a much better approach.
Yeah, I'm with you. We're going to throw in a $55 ticket for the tweet for the giveaway. We're also giving away 5 Raise Your Edge gym bags, which are really nice. We like to do gear, but then it's like a pain with sizes and all that. So we're going to do that. We're going to get the retweets out. We have a lot of questions, actually. I want to leave a good chunk of this call, Twitch, however we want to call it, podcast type on Twitch. I want to leave it for questions. I'm seeing on Twitter there's already a lot of really interesting questions for you and others. So we'll do that. We're going to go through the course. And let's see. Let's just run through the course, and then we'll go take some questions. We'll talk a little more about cash. I just want to mention I actually lost one of the biggest pots of my life this year. I was playing a big game, and I lost aces all into kings. And the guy, it's actually Rob Young, the owner of Party Poker, or one of the main primary partners of Party Poker. And I got in aces to kings. He only ran it one time and made quads. And that was a $330,000 US pot. That was in January this year. So that one hurt. I put a vlog up on that on my YouTube channel as well, if you guys want to check that out.
But was this? Was it the PCA? You guys were in the cash game there.
Yeah. So that was pretty crazy action how it went down. But that's I've had some good pots, some bad pots, and those you remember the ones when you lose, of course. But that was pretty brutal, and it just hurts when he runs it once and makes quads. The only guy at the table would only run it one time, and then you would have been pretty safe on the second one. But so yeah, that's that definitely can affect. When you have like losses like that or bad beats, it can affect other areas. It can sort of spiral things. So you got to really, really careful and be able to mentally detach from that and not think how unlucky you are and all that. So that's just something I think this is really cool, that there is within this cash game course, there's a mindset as well as a separate mindset court as you mentioned within Raise Your Edge. Let's go down to the opening ranges.
For sure.
Talk a little bit about how this is broken down here.
Yeah, and I think one more thing to add about mindset is that if you're taking the more conservative approach to, it's going to give you much easier road as far as getting volume in as well, because if you're really gambling it up with your bankroll, when you go on tough stretches, a lot of times you're just going to be crushed. You're not going to feel like playing, and then that time you take off starts compounding, right? So as far as being able to get in steady volume and stress-free volume, I think taking the conservative approach is huge as well, because as I say, otherwise, it's just going to be so many swings and way too much stress.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, for example, that game, I had some pieces out, and it wasn't, I was in for 100, and I was up and then lost, so it wasn't like it was emotional, but those are, you got to play games you're comfortable with, or again, sell or do according things, because you don't want to put something like, if I'm playing normally, 50, 100, or 1-2, and then I go play some crazy big game and get stuck or whatever happens, and then you're sort of jaded. You're kind of put in a bad spot moving forward, because it could take you a long time to get out, or you might not be able to mentally adjust. So I think that's something to really keep in mind. But let's I see these questions coming in. Keep them coming, guys. We'll try to answer all those as well. But right now we're looking at within the course, the live cash course. We're talking with Mariano5, and we are in the opening ranges. So maybe just cover a little bit what this is broken down into.
Yeah, so here we have opening ranges theory. So we're just going through the theory of what type of ranges we want to be opening and why. Because it's so important in these games, in these lower stake live cash games, to play really solid ranges. I think that's probably one of the biggest leaks that a ton of players have, even semi-regs and some professionals, is that they're just playing ranges which are just way too loose and not going to be making money, because obviously the rake is pretty high in a lot of these games. I think it's going to be lower in Vegas and LA probably, but outside of there, up here in Vancouver at least, it's pretty high, and I've heard Australia is really high. I think in Europe it can be pretty high, so you're just not going to be able to get away with playing marginal ranges, especially from the earlier positions. So we want to stick to really solid ranges, playing a tight aggressive style, and that's definitely going to be the style that's going to make you the most money. So yeah, we go through that in the theory, and then if you go on to explaining the ranges, we have the range viewer set up with Raise Your Edge. Ben has it for his master classes as well. So we have it for this course where you can go through and see all the ranges. We have, I think, a little over 50 ranges. So in the opening, we're just explaining what type of ranges we want to be using from each position. And of course, these are just guides, but this is going to be a really solid starting point. You do want to be making adjustments always in these games, because just the fluctuation of different players, just the different player types, is so massive, right? So you always want to be adjusting to the different positions and player types. But if you follow solid ranges like this, it's always going to be safe and going to be solid. So
awesome. Yeah, I agree with that. That's one of the things that are, it's similar to tournaments. It's like if you don't know the push fold or the calling ranges on different stack sizes, that's stuff you can just do and work on. It's the same thing here. If you're in cash games, you're struggling. I think it's so crazy that it's so basic, but people don't put in the time to sort of, you don't need to memorize, and like you said, I know we were covering this earlier, you can make in-game adjustments, right? Certain games you're going to have to play looser, tighter, but just to know sort of GTO or basic standard spots of what you're supposed to do, and then you can adjust to your own, that's critical to have. And if you don't have that, you're really just, you're missing out on such value to do. So I think that's really cool to have, and it can apply to any game, really. You should have the starting ranges from the positions down. And as you said, this is for full ring, but you can adjust for 6 max, take off the first 3 opening ranges and make adjustments. So that's very valuable and something we can all improve on. I mean, even myself, I'm sure that I have a pretty good idea, but there's probably some updated thoughts or just ideas that maybe there's 1 or 2 spots that it's like I'm off, or I'm not defending the big blind correctly, and certain things that can make a big difference in your win rate overall. So that's really cool. That's okay. So you gave examples there as well. There are the examples. Yeah.
So for each section, we have both theory, and then we have a ton of hand examples as well. And then for all the pre-flop sections, we have the explaining the ranges. And then from there, you're also going to get access to the range viewer, which will be, the ranges in there can be updated, which is pretty cool as well. So if, as the games evolve, if we want to update any of the ranges or add any ranges, we can always add in there. So it's really interactive.
And how long is, if you were to sit down and knock out this course, all the videos, how much total runtime is it roughly?
It's 25 hours.
Yeah, 25 hours. So you think about that, you could do, hey, you do three hours and change a day. You can do it in a week even, or 2 weeks if you do an hour and a half or so. It's pretty reasonable. Really no excuse not to have that, get this stuff done. So this is definitely, I think, 25 hours. How would you recommend? Would you say, do you have any strategy on, I guess it's person dependent, but what do you think is a good format in terms of doing it, and over what period of time would you suggest?
I mean, I'd probably suggest doing it over a couple weeks minimum, just because you want to make sure you're going through each video thoroughly and taking a lot of notes as well. Because, as I'm sure you know, if you're just kind of learning passively, it's not going to be the best approach for anything. So it's always better to be actively learning, where you're taking notes and then going back and reviewing them, and then also posting. A huge value of this course is that you're going to get access to the private Discord app on the Razor Edge Discord. So that's going to be a huge community there, and we're going to have full-time coaches on there giving feedback and answering questions. So it's really important to, as you go through the course, be writing down examples from your games and then posting them, and then applying the knowledge that you've learned in the course as you go. So my recommendation would definitely be to go through it pretty slowly. I mean, you also could go through it once as an overview, and then kind of get the main ideas, and then go back through again slowly. And then as you said, it's definitely student dependent, right? Some guys are going to be able to learn faster than others. Some guys are at more of a beginning stage than others. So it's going to depend. But yeah, I think somewhere in the range of, say, a week or two minimum to go through at least once.
That's awesome. I would agree with that. I haven't done the course yet. This is new. I'm hoping to get on even afterward. I think it's one of those things too, whether you maybe have one table up on the side, kind of relax, listen while you're playing. But I wouldn't recommend doing these type of courses when you're playing like a full session, or when you can't really focus. Even maybe no tables is better. I'm looking for that. I want to say what's up to John Smorian81. Good to see you. Six Sniper, hello. We got Diaz1990 in the chat. Hey Jeff, I played soccer with an ex-teammate of yours from USC. He said you were always hustling. Congrats on Party Poker. What's up, Scary Purple? Who was that, man? I did go to South Carolina. I did play soccer. I didn't get to play much, but I was like an all-star practice player. Like I busted my ass and had fun, and just wasn't quite physical or fast enough to play. But truthfully, I think I got a little snub. But I want to take ownership on the. I get it. It just I didn't get to. Actually, it's funny because it's sort of like poker is what I've transitioned to from soccer when I realized I wasn't going to be a professional soccer player. And kind of at that time in college, I had already got so into it that I was kind of like whatever. But it was like weird to go to college and think, oh, it's going to be great. I'll be Mark Wiltsey, yeah, he's a legend. Tell him hello. It was just funny because it's like you get there and everyone's really good, and then it's just sort of like you get kind of lost in the shuffle, and that was that. But that was my whole life until I found poker, and I really got into it in college. How old were you when you started playing?
I think it was about 22.
22. So okay, so you got so you got a little bit of a late start, and you're how old now?
36.
36. So so you've been playing about the same amount of time. You just started a little bit later on. Oh, so you have been playing. So you started around the time of the boom, just after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I saw was Moneymaker on TV. I mean, it's kind of funny and cliche, but I think that was actually the first thing that I saw on TV. I think it was that hand between him and Ivy where I don't know if you remember that one, where I think Moneymaker flopped trick queens, and then Ivy turned
nines.
A boat of nines, and then he had an ace on the river. I think it was on the final table bubble.
Yeah, who knows? Poker could be all different for everyone if he doesn't win that. Again, Mariano5, sorry to interrupt you sometimes. I got the Twitch streamer in me. I talk a lot, so I apologize. Also, want to shout out the chat as they come in, and I got Pappy Van Winkle asking how close is the kid. I do have my baby boy is 2 weeks out. They say it could be any time now. If I have to cut, you never know. I might have to run over to the hospital. My wife's Amelia's nearby, and I see a lot of familiar faces, but the boy is coming soon. JW Poppy in the building. What's up, bro? Good to see you. He's got the moderator holding it down, and we're we're going to go through this whole course. We are going to ask questions. We do have the retweet giveaway for 5 gym bags plus a $55 party poker ticket going to give to someone. And who knows, we'll probably give a Poker Tracker 4 away at the end. We got 170 on. Hope you guys are having a great day. I miss being on Twitch. I am in the USA, so we'll hopefully get some streams going in the future. But yeah, Mariano5, maybe we could, before a session starts or something, we could pop on and do a hand review or two now and again. If you're up for it, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm
to
definitely
pop
down.
in and do a segment, talk about some of your hands. I would love to do. Do you have a hand in particular you could get teed up maybe towards the end? We could go over and just kind of think about. Do you have an interesting one that comes to mind that you could discuss? It might be be hard to not visualize it, but
I have one on. I mean, I save hands on pokerreplays.com. I could send you the link.
Oh yeah, that would be sick. That would be really cool. We're gonna go through the questions as well, and then we're gonna just keep riding through this course here. And again, it is $50 off. That is use the code right there, Mastering Live Cash. That is on the Raise Your Edge website. You can click !RYE. What up, KY Wildcat Ogre in the building? We do have Mariano5 here, and he's gonna pull up. He's gonna get a hand teed up for us in a bit. We're going through the opening ranges right now. Let's drop down to the next one. Isolating and overlimping. This is an interesting part of the game, which I'm not. I have a good idea, but I would love to know more. Talk a little bit about this section.
Yeah, so this is obviously really important for these games because there's so many limpers. It's really prevalent. So we want to make sure we have a good strategy for what type of hands to isolate, and then obviously what type of hands to overlimp. So yeah, we have the theory there, and then we have some ranges as well as part of the theory, and then we have the hand examples. And I think a big thing is finding the balance of how wide you can isolate, and this really depends on the player types who limped. Is super important because a lot of times you'll be in a game where there'll be 3, 4, or 5 limps, and then you make it whatever, like 10 or 12x, and 3 or 4 of them call every time, right? So in that case, you're going to want to adjust and start isolating much tighter in order to get heads up. But then there'll be other games where there's a bunch of limpers and you can start isolating wider and just take down the limps and the blinds or get it heads up a lot. So we talk about that, and then what type of hands you want to be using, which is super important. And I think something else that's really important is to try to avoid playing multi-way pots, especially with weaker offsuit hands. A lot of people end up calling raises from mid or late position with hands like say ace-10 off, ace-jack off, and then it goes like 5-6 way, and it's just really tough to win pots in those circumstances. So as long as you have some experience playing, if you're much newer, it's fine to start playing more passively, get used to seeing more flops. But the better you get at playing in 3-bet pots and squeezing, we definitely recommend taking the more aggressive route, trying to get the pot heads up, and then you can utilize your positional advantage and also utilize your edge in 3-bet pots and just make a ton of money that way. So again, we're just looking to take the tight aggressive approach and not being in there calling raises or overlimping with weak hands. So yeah. That's the approach we take.
Give us a little bit of, let's just say in a 2-5 game, people are limping for 5, you're on the cutoff or button. What type of hands, or even the hijack, and there's 2-3 limpers, and my understanding, like hands like king, queen suited, queen, jack suited are going to be nice to pop up. Some ace, x suiteds potentially. I think, give me like a misconception maybe of a hand that you might squeeze with there, and one that people might do. Like I would imagine a pair. Like if you have a low pair, it's probably good. It would just be kind of nice to get into the pot, try to hit a set for cheap. But maybe give us a couple examples of some misconceptions or just sort of overall strategy in that type of logic. What type of hands would be good to just take a flop with, and when would you want to isolate it?
Yeah. So for sure, the smaller pairs you just want to be limping behind. Start raising with hands like say pocket 8s plus. But even if if there's a bunch of limpers and you figure they're not going to be folding enough, you could definitely limp behind with hands as strong as 8s. But definitely when it's like 9s or 10s plus, I'm going to be isolating always. And then any suited Broadway, so like jack 10 suited plus, usually want to be isolating if you feel you can at least get it heads up. Again, if it's if there's tons of limpers and they're never folding, it's totally fine to overlimp with a hand like 10 jack suited. But most of the suited Broadways, you just want to be taking the aggressive route and raising it up. And then ace 10 offsuit plus, king queen, even a hand like king jack if you feel you can get it heads up. And then, yeah, obviously all, the good pairs. And then as far as the suited ace-x, with the baby suited ace-x, I don't mind limping behind quite often just because they play so well in multi-way pots. But if you have something like, say, ace-9 suited plus, I'm always going to be raising it up there, trying to get a heads up.
I'm sorry, ace-8? You said ace-8 suited plus?
Yeah, like ace-8 or ace-9 suited plus. But if I have something like, ace-6 suited, ace-2, ace-3 suited, I don't mind limping behind at all and just keeping the pot small. And the same thing goes with the weaker offsuit broadways, hands like, say, 10 jack off, queen jack off, that, if you're in the cutoff of the button and you feel like you're not going to be able to get a heads up with the raise, those are totally fine to limp behind. But I think a misconception, something I see a ton, is that people make small isolation raises versus a bunch of limpers with hands like, say, 6-7 suited, where, obviously these hands play fine in position, but you want to be keeping the pot small. And if you have basically no fold equity preflop and it's going to go 5 or 6 way, there's no point raising a hand like, 6-7 suited. If there's maybe 1 or 2 limpers, then for sure, you can take the aggressive route, try to win the blinds and get it heads up. But I see all the time where people kind of put these pot sweetener raises in, I guess they'd call it, with like, say like pocket sixes or like, 7-5 suited or something like that. So definitely rather just make the choice between I'm going to be isolating here with a strong range, trying to eliminate the field, or if not, I'm just going to limp behind and keep the pot small and see it flop. Because obviously playing in position, and especially if we have an edge over the players, it's never going to be a bad thing, right, when you're playing small pots.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that. It's also, I think that's a big thing you touched on there is having nutted hands. When you're multi-way out of position, those 6-8 suiteds and all those lower suited hands, it's just hard because you can never really play a big pot when you're 3, 4, 5, 6 way and you make a flush. You're just like hoping you're good instead of being able to go for that big value. So I think that's important too. Like you mentioned, just not, you don't want to be in multi-way pots out of position with marginal hands. You're just going to get in really tough spots. Even king jacks, queen jacks, even ace 10, ace jacks are very tough to play a big pot without making the nuts. And it's I think something that people make a lot of mistakes is that it's again the starting hand ranges and multi-way pots. Those are things you really need to understand how conceptually. It doesn't take a ton of work, but if you can grasp that, it's going to help you a lot.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, yeah, just to add on to that, I think people really underestimate how important preflop ranges are, because everything cascades from preflop. Like you could take a player who's not super experienced, but you could say, okay, just play like a super tight range, and honestly, they could probably do pretty well in these games just by playing a really tight range, just because of the fact, as you say, that when you hit a flush, or if you hit a set, you're going to overset guys. You're going to have the nut flush versus lower flushes. You're going to have the higher straights versus the lower straights. So that's just such a huge thing, because you see inexperienced players constantly complaining, but the thing is they're always in there with hands that make the lower end of the straights, or they have baby flushes, etc. So it's so important, and it's definitely something you don't want to overlook. It can definitely be hard in game because to have the patience, as we talked about, but if you're able to develop that patience, it's going to pay off huge long term.
Absolutely. I want to shout out my friend BY Do, saying, hey, dude, it's been a while again. Been gearing up for the baby here and getting organized with a lot of stuff. We are going to be streaming a ton in the future, and just being in Miami gives us a bit of a tough spot. I'm trying to get a studio in the Bahamas set up so I can just fly right over and not have bags. That'll help a lot, being able to stream here. So we got a lot of stuff in the works, guys. We've been doing the podcasting as well, and we are going to be doing more of this type of stuff. Mariano5 and I are just talking about some of that. Maybe after you show this replayer and some of these hands, maybe we can do this more often, even if it's short for 30 minutes or an hour. Just pop on here and do a little bit of review with you guys. That'd be fun. Sanderosis, good to see you. We do have giveaways as well from Raise Your Edge. Nuts Hand in the House, Hellkit 13. Back on the streaming grind. Yeah, we're back. And I have got we got Diaz 1990. Good to see you. Waffles 2003. Thank you so much. Scary Purple. Make sure you say hi to Mark Wiltsey for me. He's a great defender. So we talk about isolating and overlimping hand examples. That's super interesting, and we hear Michael talk a little bit about that. And we are going to go to flatting, 3-betting, and 4-betting. This is something I know for myself. I play in some decent-sized games, and I'm really missing value, I think, in certain spots, but it's just one of those things where I play on the snugger side, and I would love to open up and start getting into some more high variance spots, because I think that's one of the things you mentioned. If you're a good player and you navigate well post flop, you want to try to get heads up, you want to try to to make people get in tough positions. And I think this is really where the game's won and lost, and what's going to separate. Like, well, if you want to beat games and play solid starting ranges and make some decent plays, and you're gonna book consistent wins. But I think this is where the meat of it is: the 3-betting, 4-betting, and building pots and being comfortable post flop is where the game is. I think you see some of the big crushers. That it's pretty obvious those are the styles that do the best, the biggest win rates, and are able to really capitalize. So this is interesting, and would love to hear you kind of run through these categories.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. And definitely one thing I would say, though, is to make sure that you do have the experience, because I think a lot of people come into the game and they see stuff on TV, or maybe they see some training videos of people playing really high stakes and trying to implement that aggressive style, which is obviously against the crushers, and in the tough games it's going to be the best style. But I think a lot of people take it to that without having too much experience, and they can actually end up just in a ton of really tough spots where they end up making a ton of really big mistakes. So I would definitely recommend, if you're new to the game, try to just keep the pot smaller and just see more flops, and just try to play more straightforward, just betting your hands for value, betting your best draws, but not really trying to go into the fancy play syndrome or the aggressive side of things just yet. But I definitely agree with you that the more you develop, that's definitely where the money is going to be made, especially against the other regulars, right? If you want to create edges against the other good regulars, you're just going to have to up your aggression.
Absolutely. So maybe talk about a couple 3-betting, 4-betting spots, some hands, maybe some spots that you would mention that people that aren't thinking about, or just what type of hands would you be looking at 3-bet in the types of games, 1-3, 2-5 live games that are relatively soft?
Yeah, so for 3-betting, I definitely recommend just going with a linear strong range for starters, at least, and until you have more information about a player, because people call 3-bets so wide in these games that you don't want to be getting caught too often 3-betting, hands like, say, king jack off, 6-7 suited, those type of hands, just because players are going to call, as I said, pretty wide against you. So I would start with just a really strong linear range. Nobody's going to adjust. Nobody's going to exploit you by overfolding, even if you're just 3-betting, 9 or 10s plus, and then ace queen plus, right? You just go for straight value until you have more info. But then obviously versus the better players, you do want to start implementing a bluffing range. But we're going to be recommending, obviously, with our bluffing range, it's still going to be really high equity bluffs. So a lot of suited broadways, best suited connectors, suited aces, and then also something for, I talked about it earlier about when let's say you're in middle position or early position and somebody comes in raising from early position. A lot of guys will end up flatting there with hands like king queen off or ace jack off, or maybe some low suited connectors. But unless the game's really soft, you're just going to want to be taking more of a 3-bet or fold approach in these spots. So yeah, you can definitely flat some pocket pairs and maybe some of the best suited broadways, but you definitely want to be starting to 3-bet or fold and using some of the good suited broadways, suited ace x, because I think that's another really big misconception, is that you can just flat really wide ranges in early or mid or even later position. But as we talked about before, in these games, it's going to go 6-7 ways so often that it's really just not going to be profitable, especially with the high rake. So yeah, I guess that's the main approach. And then obviously we talk about in the flat calling theory, the main thing to consider there always is who's in the blinds. So if you're in later position, you have a really weak player in the big blind or the small blind, you definitely want to start flatting some of the hands, which you might normally 3-bet, just because it's so important to keep in the weakest players, right? That's where a ton of your money is going to come from post flop. So if I was in a spot, let's say on the button with a hand like, say, queen jack suited or 10 jack suited, a spot where I might 3-bet against a regular if there's some tough players in the blinds. But if I see there's a really weak player in the blinds, I'm definitely going to be inclined to just call there and keep the pot small, play in position, and then wait for these players to make huge mistakes post flop.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great point. Similar in the MTTs as well. Similar spots where that's discussed a lot on Razor Edge. Talk about the 3-betting theory. Looks like there's some. I like these too because these videos aren't super intense. Like 20 minute. It's like one of those things where you can really get in if you have an area that you're looking at to work on. Some of these videos, they're not 2-hour videos. They're not super intimidating. You can really kind of go through and get a relatively quick answer. So that's cool. I guess touch on this, what the theory behind 3-betting.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I guess I just talked about it a bit there, but just again, using strong linear ranges in these games is going to be the best way to go because players just call way too wide versus the three bets. And yeah, I mean that's basically going to be our approach. Not flatting too often from the middle positions, and then just going strictly for value basically until you get in the, if you're playing in a 2-5 game or higher where there's a lot of good regulars, you want to start adapting, as I said, and start developing good three bet bluffing ranges. But as I said, you want to be using high equity bluffs. So
Yeah.
people aren't really using. I think for a while there, people were using really polarized ranges. So using hands like 5-6 suited, 6-7 suited, which I think there's going to be some spots which is fine for board coverage, but you don't really need to worry about that in these games because people aren't going to exploit you on the lower boards unless they're some of the top players in the game. And even then, I think the only spots where you want to be using a really polarized range would be if you're saying the big blind versus the button. But everywhere else, it's definitely shifted to just using really high equity suited Broadway hands.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something really, going over stuff like this as well makes you more confident, and just seeing some examples. It can look intimidating here as we see the chart, some of these ranges, but it gives you a great idea. It gives you, even if it's closer, you kind of just get a general understanding. You don't need to memorize these aren't, it's again, in your own game, you're going to be able to, and versus the players you're playing on a given day or situation, you got to make adjustments. So it's good to just have a general understanding of what types of hands, is it Jack 10 suited, or do you go down to 9-10 suited, or Queen Jack off? These little variations you can make, but just getting a good understanding on it is really cool. And at the different stack depths, which is also important. Cash, generally, people are deeper. More, people are not short buying for the most part, but there's still some varying stack sizes, so it's important to understand the differences there. There's examples. It looks like flatting and 3-betting. Playing 3-betting versus 4-betting. I mean, the 4-bet theory is pretty cool, and understanding what types of hands are good to 4-bet because they're not so good to flat. You want to find out where you're at, and also with blockers and all that. I guess that's what that's talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you definitely again want to be careful in these games, especially if you're playing in like a 1-2 or a 1-3 game, because people are generally 3-betting really nutted ranges, right? So you don't want to get carried away with 4-bet bluffing until you find out that somebody is capable of having some 3-bet bluffs. So we're generally going to be using really nutted 4-bet ranges, but of course then we go through what type of hands you can use as bluffs, and it's always going to be using blockers and high playability hands. Really important, because I think a lot of people kind of get carried away and then I mean, which, I guess sometimes it can be fine as an exploit if you have some type of read on someone that he's 3-betting you light, but right. I've seen people just like, okay, I'm getting 3-bet light here. I'm just going to go off the rails here and 4-bet with a hand like, I don't know, like King 7 offsuit or something, just because I feel like it, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a way better approach to stick to solid ranges, and long term it's just going to crush.
Right, and exactly, because part of the problem is when you start saying, oh, I'm just going to 4-bet this guy because I think he's full of shit, but if you do have you happen to be out of line at the late position raise with King 7 or some other type of hand that doesn't play so well, you have to remember they're going to call sometimes, and you're going to be in there with a pretty ugly spot. And a lot of the times you can avoid some situations, because when you do have like a 9-5 suited or King 5 suited or some other type of hands that are more valuable, and they're going to just give you better board coverage and spots where you do get in weird spots, and somehow you can still get lucky, or obviously you're going to be behind when you have those hands almost always, but it gives you a chance to win a pot or at least make a play and have some extra equity. So yeah, that's exciting. That's cool. This is again, this is my first time. I have not done the course yet. I look forward to doing this, and this is definitely. This is great. So this is flat calling theory, 3-betting theory, this whole section here, going through that as we're talking about. Let's go over to playing in the blinds, because this, I believe, is, in tournament poker, super difficult as well. Let's talk about small blind strategy, playing from the blinds, and just kind of the approach here, because I think a lot of us would agree this is one of the trickier parts in poker, and one of the spots that everyone's losing money in, but you can avoid how much you're losing. You're supposed to lose, right? You're out of position. You post it automatically. Can you talk a little bit about this theory and how this all comes together?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely tough. Some I think is a huge leak in the live cash games that people defend way too wide from the big blind, because people, the open sizings are obviously really big. And then again, there's really high rake, and you just have a lot of players who just don't give a shit, and they're just basically defending, near 100%, right? And you're just burning money. So we're definitely focused on defending really high equity ranges. And then same thing goes for the small blind. We're obviously looking to mainly play 3-bet or fold from the small blind, at least from later positions. But in these games, because the fields are so soft, you can definitely get away with flatting more often in a small blind, especially if there's, say, a weak player in the big blind or the opener was weak. So we definitely go over what type of hands you want to be calling in those situations. And then, of course, it depends on the sizing a lot too. So, sometimes guys will be making it 6, 7, 8x, in which case you're obviously going to have to defend way tighter from the blinds.
Right.
But yeah, something I would definitely recommend, especially for newer players, is just play really tight from the blinds, because even though you're getting a discount, you're going to have to, as I talked about, pay the bigger size raisins, and then you're just going to be out of position the whole hand, especially if it's a multi-way. There's just no way you can make up trying to play, a trash range from the big blind, when you're 5-6 handed out of position with some, shitty offsuit hand, right? But you see it all the time, and it's just going to get you into trouble. So again, we're just taking a tight, solid, tight, aggressive approach there.
Absolutely. So there's some talks about small blind and big blind, showing different hands, switch to flat, 3-bet, different stack steps. Really cool having all the ranges there. Big blind as well. Talking about 3-betting and squeezing, and then go ahead.
Sorry. Also, isolating from the blind. So we have some ranges for that, and then some examples, because that's another thing that I think people have a tough time with, is what type of hands they want to be isolating versus limpers. And I think a lot of people actually end up playing too tight, where they end up just completing from the small blind or checking from the big blind, where you could really instead just make a big ISO raise and isolate maybe one of the weaker players heads up. And a lot of times you're going to have the guy dominated, or even just winning the pot pre-flop is always a win, because unless you have, say, aces or kings, pretty much any hand you have, if you're winning the blinds, there's no rake pre-flop, so that's going to be a huge benefit, right? So we definitely want to be playing aggressive from the blinds versus limps when we can. So we'll be showing you what type of hands you want to be doing that with as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very valuable stuff. And so that's the actually, did you send me the link too? Because maybe we'll do one of these. Did you send me the replay of a hand we could talk about, and then we'll continue through there, and then we'll take some questions as well. But do you have a replayer of one of the hands you want to go through?
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm checking it out.
All right, as he's pulling that up, we'll show you guys again. I'm trying to think. I have a couple, mostly tournament vlogs, but there's a couple hands I did from some 200, 400 cash games that I played. And there was actually 1 or 2 spots that I think I had really big hands, and I decided to. Oh, this was actually, this was one where I'm kicking myself. I don't know if you have do you have the video up?
Yeah.
I just actually want to touch on this because this is an interesting spot. I remember this. So I had like the perfect scenario. We were playing 200, 400. I think I had, I'm not sure how much it says I had. Let me look. I had, can't see how much I had in front of me, but I had about 80 grand in front of me, and we had a 3-bet. I had aces, pretty good spot, late position. I might even have been on the button, I believe. And I was on the button. And then I got Sam Trickett, who Rob Flack called the small blind with 9-10 off. Rob Young. That's definitely not a profitable play. And then we saw Sam Trickett 3-bet to 6,200. And he's got me covered, and I got around 80,000, 70-something thousand. And Sam goes ahead and squeezes out of the big blind. He's done this a few times. I had it last time, and then I think I ended up 4-betting to 22,000. So I made a pretty big bet, but really, I think that's a spot where, like, how are you deciding whether to flat call with aces in that spot or to try to go for because the argument is if he somehow has ace king or kings, you might be able to play for it all pre-flop. You call when he has like the ace 5, ace 6, those bluffs. Like even here, he's got jack 10 off. Kind of let him hang himself. He's out of position. He's trapped. And I mean, I think. What are your thoughts on a spot like that? Like what would warrant you for going for it or just deciding, okay, just trap and let him go to town?
Well, I think here a huge factor is that the small blind called as well. So you don't want to call and then have the small blind get a really good price and come in too, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be better to get it heads up. And then definitely the tighter the player, if I thought the big blind was really tight and was just on a nutted range, I'm definitely going to be more inclined just to put in the 4-bet and just look to cooler him when he has kings or possibly queens or ace king.
Yeah.
But versus a more aggressive player, if it was heads up, we could definitely consider calling. But I would just like to 4-bet this always, because you're definitely going to have 4-bet bluffs here because the ranges are pretty wide, right? So definitely a hand like aces, I would just put into my 4-bet range almost always. I mean, you could mix in some flat calls, but it's going to be better just to start putting the money in there.
That
right?
was part of my thought process is, like, you see Rob peeling 9-10 off. So if I flat there, he's probably even going to call, which is, granted with 9-10 off and Jack-10 off, that's a decent spot still. But all of a sudden, you run the equities. It's not like you're kind of like Omaha there where one of the two can hit 2-pair, a straight. Things, it's just, I agree. I think that logic is really well said, because if it was just Sam heads up there and he raises me and Rob had folded, I think it's a lot more. Now you're navigating heads up, but when you throw in an extra player, let's say he has a pair, maybe Sam has queen king suited and the guy's got sevens, like now you're at the risk of opening up a big pot. So how about the sizing though?
For sure.
What do you think on the sizing that? I mean, I went a little bit bigger, but it's also my logic is if he is nutted, you could he's just trapped, right? Like if I make it like 16K or something, like if he happens to have, there's logic for both ways. What do you think on sizing wise? I go from 6K to 22, which is pretty big. I mean, it's real big, but it is, and I'm in position.
Yeah. I mean, how deep are you guys here?
So it's 200, 400. Looks like I had about 75K, and so 75K at 200, 400, 800 straddle, I believe. And he's got me covered. So 75K effective, like what's 200 bigs?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely want to make it smaller. Just because it's going to allow us to have more of a bluffing range as well. And then obviously with aces, I mean, you obviously want to be balanced, but we can definitely not worry and play exploitatively and use a smaller sizing just to try to keep him in or force him to do something spewy, like 5-bet jam, maybe some weaker hands. And I think versus a smaller sizing, I think he's going to be more inclined to do that whereas versus the bigger sizing, he's going to perceive to have a lot less fold equity, with a big play pre-flop. So I'd rather make it something like maybe 15 or 16,000 there.
Okay.
I mean, I guess there's the dead money in there too, but yeah, usually just somewhere around say 2.5x in position should be fine, because you're only say 200 big blinds deep, so it's not too deep as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think so. That's an interesting hand. Let's pop over to you here, and should I hit play? This is the replayer. This is an aces hand at a 2-5 game. Looks like you have 865.
Yeah, so hope this is the right hand here.
I'm going to play it here while we're taking. We got 160 people on right now. I was trying to buy an LC place for your, hold on one sec. JBW189, Jeff, I was looking at the site trying to buy, and I don't see a place to use your promo code. Any idea why that is? I'm on mobile. Do you have any idea on that, Mariano?
No. I could ask support him. I'm not sure. Does he, you tell him to, is he on the Discord app is the best place to ask support if you can get onto the Discord app?
I think if you use the link, it works anyway. I believe. JBW8189. You said there's some support on Discord's the best?
Yeah, we have a support team there. But yeah, I mean, it should be, I think other people are able to do it.
JBW189, I'm pretty sure it works, and definitely the link would work. Is this the right one where it's 2-5, you make it 20 under the gun?
Yeah.
And then we got a guy covering you. Flats.
Yes. Yeah. So this was this guy flatted was a regular, and he was pretty good and aggressive. And yeah, the guy in the big blind was a really weak player. So we'll see how this develops. This replayer is kind of glitchy sometimes. Hopefully it works.
All right, 862. That's a pretty good flop for your hand. You go ahead and lead out, get called in 2 spots. Rainbow, thoughts here?
Yeah. So I mean, if I'm playing against 2 regulars or maybe 2 or 3 regulars who have position on me, I don't mind just checking my entire range on a board like this actually. But when there's a weaker player in the big blind, I just always need to be betting here because there's going to be a lot of runouts so we can get 3 streets of value. So just a good spot to start betting.
All right, so we get a call and a call. So obviously you feel good, but the flatting player, 8s, 6s, deuces, possible hands there. But other than that, I mean, he's going to have a lot of pairs, floats with Broadway cards. So you feel good.
Yeah. And then, is it not? Sometimes it freezes too when you pause it and then try to replay.
Oh,
looks
like it's working. 8, 6, 2, 3.
Okay,
turn.
There it goes.
Good turn card for you.
Yeah. So here, I mean, I'm only worried about the big blind can have 4-5 for sure. He's definitely loose enough where he's probably defending all the 4-5 off, but it's obviously a pretty good card as well. I can still get value from a lot of 8x. The player 6 isn't going to have 4-5. He's not going to have 4-5 suited, so I'm not too worried about him at all. He can obviously have some sets sometimes, but I still want to keep betting for value here. Yep. And yeah, so he folds, and then the river, basically like the best river in the deck. And I think here, something that is pretty common, something that I do as well sometimes, is that just to go for thinner value here, maybe bet something like 250 or 300. But I think this is actually a really good spot to just put in the overbet jam. It's going to put him in a really tough spot when he has, say, pocket 10s through pocket queens, or even 8x, because I think a lot of players in his position, they're going to perceive us when we shove here to be really polarized, right? So they're not going to be expecting us to be shoving with hands like aces and kings too often. So they might be thinking, well, he's either polarized to something like pocket 8s, or he could have some bluffs. I could have hands like ace 4 of clubs, ace 5 of clubs, also some hands like 10 jack of clubs, queen jack of clubs. I could definitely start betting on the flop. So I think it's a good spot to put in an overbet shove here and just put him in a really tough spot with 10s and queens. And players in these games don't like to fold in general. You're going to find that. So you're just going to get called down here a ton. And if you look at the EV between say, betting 300, which would be standard, or betting 600, you only have to get called half the amount of time with the overbet, right, for it to be more profitable. And I think in the long run, if you find a lot of these spots and start putting in the overbets, it's just going to be really, really profitable in these games. And the thing is here, I'm not worried about, once he just calls the turn, I'm not really worried about sets anymore. He could have occasionally the sets, but I think he's going to put in a raise really often with the big blind still in there.
Yeah.
Just because the board's getting pretty dynamic, right? So by this point, I think his range is pretty capped. It's really looking like pocket 9s through pocket queens, or maybe some strong 8x. So when we know our opponent's range is really capped, and if we know he's a good thinking regular, those are the times when you want to put in the big overbets, because they're going to understand that they have to still defend enough of their range, right? Otherwise, you can just bluff them a ton. So if you're playing against this player type, I would definitely recommend going for the overbets here.
Yeah, so I mean, it really in your mind, this is like you said, a dream scenario. There's really almost no hands that he has that beat you. It's pretty much like he has 9s plus, like 9s to queens, or he had, he could even have 7s. He could have some floats with clubs. I mean, there's really no merit to check, but you don't have a club in your hand. Is there any scenario where you think, is there a spot where you might check this and let him bluff if you think he has more bluffs, like queen king suited, jack queen suited, or do you just think it's just too much? It's close, right, in terms of value that he has 9s plus, or some sort of floating hand that he might try to bluff, but it's probably better just to go for it. And do you think he would check back though? Like, what does he do at 10s and 9s? Do you think he just checks back?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he'll definitely check back a decent percentage of the time, which is kind of a disaster for us, especially if he checks back something like jacks or queens occasionally. And yeah, I mean, if there was more front door draws, I'd be more inclined to be checking, right? If there's more missed draws, but here, really the only thing that would be something like 9-7 suited, or he could have floated me, as you say, with some backdoor clubs, but I much prefer just to go for value here. Maybe trapping occasionally with a hand like aces with a club, or kings with a club. But yeah, I mean, the main thing here, as you said, is that he's really capped. And if you're in a spot where your opponent's capped and he knows that you know that he's capped, then you can definitely start to apply a ton of pressure. And as I said, they kind of have to start defending some hands if they know that you have a decent bluffing range. So we just want to be going for max value here.
I like it. So you do go ahead and jam, I'm sure. And yeah, 10s, 9s, jacks make a lot of sense.
Yeah, even a hand like, if he had a hand like, say, 8x would be a better bluff catcher because he's blocking pocket 8s, right? So he could have a hand something like, he might have had something like 9-8 suited here. He tank called, which I'm not sure what he had. I'm assuming he just had one of the overpairs or a hand like 8x. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm doing more in my game lately, is to start putting in these over bets, and especially versus the weaker players, you know, you can gain so much value putting in those big bets. You know, it's just going to net you a lot more money long term.
At your game, you play it. Can people run it twice or no?
No, just run it once here.
Run it once. All right. Well, nice hand. That's a cool spot. I mean, this is the type of stuff I would definitely love to work some with this, do some stuff with you, maybe film some videos, and then also let people ask some questions. So let's finish the course, and then we'll also give the people a chance to get the retweets out, guys. You got a chance for a Raise Your Edge gym bag. I'm gonna throw in a Party Poker $55 ticket, and we'll let Mariano5 give the winner on that. We're gonna answer the questions you guys have, but let's finish out the last bit here. I think we left off on playing from the blinds. I introed a post flop. Let's talk about post flop and what this covers in the Raise Your Edge live cash game course. Post flop, which is fun. Post flop is, I mean, that's where the game's won and lost, right? A coolers and stuff pre-flop. You can learn anyone can learn the hand ranges, but you go into the streets and it gets dynamic, and there's a lot of creativity and a lot of ways with bet sizing, creativity, how to play different opponents, different stack depths. So this is where, you know, for me, this is the most exciting part of poker. It makes sense.
Absolutely. So in this intro to post flop video, we go through some pot odds as far as bet sizings, and then, you know, how often our bet has to work. As you can see, I don't know if you have it pulled up here, but we have the Raise Your Edge pot odds chart. So how often our bet has to work for it to be profitable, and then how often we have to be good when we're calling a bet size. And then I just give some examples about pot odds and bet sizings, and then go a bit more into the theory of bet sizing as well. And then moving on to the player types, going through all the main type of player types in these games and their general tendencies, and then what our adjustments are going to be versus each player type, which is just really important, right? Because, you know, there's going to be a certain select player types who we do want to be bluffing, and we can start adding 3-bet bluffs, etc. But then there's also going to be, especially at the lower games, at the 1-2 and the 1-3, there's going to be a vast majority of the players who you can just play really solid poker, not use too many bluffs, play really strong linear ranges, and those are going to be the adjustments you want to make. So we go through all that stuff in the player types, and then moving along to flop play, we're going through each position, being out of position or in position as a pre-flop aggressor and also as a pre-flop caller. So we have theory videos for those and hand examples for each of those. So there's going to be a ton of info there.
Okay, so we got flop play, better check, playing in the pre-flop aggressor or out of position, which is also very, it's interesting. Again, like a lot of these games are exploitative, where you're in live and people are just making big mistakes, and you can really, but again, you hear, I think the best tournament players in the world know it's good. You need to know what's right or what is optimal, and then when you are matched up with good opponents, you have that common ground, and then you can make adjustments. And when you're, you know, overbet bluffing in certain spots and blockers isn't going to work against certain players, but it's good to know how to do it, how to apply, and have it all the what's the analogy? Having all the clubs in your bag, right? You want to be able to do and use things in the right times, but, you know, always going to be able be a good exploitive player is incredible, and that's huge. But you do need to learn sort of the fundamentals. That'll help you a lot. So I mean, that's cool. It talks about that here.
For sure. I think that's a really good point you make too, though, because I think in order to be a good exploitative player, it's so powerful to know, you know, even basic GTO stuff, you know, because then you can understand how players are, how they're, what's the word? How they're strained, I guess, from GTO. And then from there, we can exploit them even harder. You know what I mean? So that's why I think if you have a chance, you know, using solvers and that is just so powerful, because even if you're not using it necessarily in the game, you start to get an idea, as you said, about what type of spots we can use over bets, what type of spots where the EVs change and, you know, the nut advantages change. And so you start to get a general idea of that. And that's really where you can start learning a ton. And as you can say, you can start using that with a mix of exploitative and just be a really powerful player.
For sure. It's powerful stuff. No question about it. So talking about playing flop as caller, we have examples on both the pre-flop aggressor as well as in position. So all this comes in there. Playing flop, 3-bet, 4-bet. I mean, wow, this is so. Playing flop in a 3-bet, 4-bet pots. This stuff sounds a little intimidating, but again, these videos are 20, 40 minutes, and I think it is something that it's like you said, it's geared towards 1-3-2-5. This isn't meant to be insanely difficult stuff. It's just sort of you're targeting the 1-3-2-5 players, and I think it's valuable for any level. How would you say this relates to tournaments? Like, is someone who says, okay, this is the cash course? Two parts to the question. How would you say, could you use some of this info for tournaments, and also what is easier, in your opinion, to go from being a cash game player into tournaments or a tournament player into cash games? What do you think is easier to transition to?
Yeah, I think you could definitely use this stuff in tournaments. There's obviously going to be a lot of adjustments in tournaments when you're dealing with ICM and then the shorter stack sizes and antes, but obviously a ton of the stuff in the course is just about solid no limit hold'em theory, right? So you can apply this to any format. As I said, you're going to have to make the adjustments, but the stuff you're learning here is going to be, it's going to be able to be applied anywhere, because we're talking about good hand selection, using blockers, what type of boards you want to be betting on, what type of bluffs you want to be using, and then how you want to be adjusting when it's multi-way or out of position. So definitely can be applied anywhere. And as far as, it's a tough question, I guess, transitioning. I think if you're a good cash game player, you should be able to be pretty good in tourneys. You're going to have to learn a lot, obviously, but then at least, especially in the earlier stages, you're going to have a big edge post flop, right? When you're deep, and even in the later stages, if you're in a good structured tournament, you're going to have a good idea. But then, of course, the leaks are going to be in the reshoving and the push fold spots, right? That's where you're going to have to learn a lot, and obviously the ICM. But yeah, I think I would say that if you had a cash game background, you'd be better off as opposed to going the other way around.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. You have. You've seen some guys like Greg Merson. There are some really good cash game players that have turned on and become great tournament players, and won the main event or really. Deep stack cash is similar. There's a lot of similarities, actually. So the biggest difference with tournaments is the stack sizes, that there's a lot of 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 blind poker, whereas in cash games, generally that's not the case. So, other than that, like when you're in a lot of stages of the tournament, it's very similar.
Yeah, but I guess another tough thing in tourneys is being able to adjust to all the different sizes at the table, right? Because you're going to want to be playing, different ranges, different strategies against the different player types with the different stack sizes. So that's something that's really, I think, tough to learn. But I think in general, if you're a good no limit hold'em player, if you're studying the game a lot, you can definitely be good at both. You know what I mean? Like you can definitely adjust and then switch formats. I think the main thing is that you're always just trying to improve and putting work into your game. And then, from there, you're going to be able to learn kind of any format of poker and be successful.
For sure. I'm looking here at the Raise Your Edge website on Instagram. They do a ton of content. I'm sure on there's the Raise Your Edge on Instagram. Raise Your Edge has a very, very elaborate channel as well on YouTube. And you do what other type of content? So it's yourself and Fallout86. Talk a little bit about Fallout86 as well.
Yeah, so he's my partner who made the course. He lives in Germany, and he plays live cash. I think he plays it's 2-4 no limit, 2-4 euros, and then he also plays house games. And yeah, he's been playing for a living for I think about 8 years. He does a lot of coaching, and so yeah, we were talking about hands a couple years ago. I got a bit of coaching from him, and then we just talked about doing, the possibility of making a course, because there's obviously a lot of value. A lot of people are looking for something like this where there's something structured for people to follow, because I think there's a lot of info out there, but it's hard for people to kind of pick and choose from what to take, you know what I mean? Whereas if you have something that you can just follow that's structured and then have the support system in the Discord app, it's going to be huge. So yeah, I guess I was talking about Fallout before, but yeah, he lives in Germany and plays live cash full time, and he's a coach on Raise Your Edge. He also created the elementary cash game course, which is available on Raise Your Edge as well for the micro stakes online.
That's awesome. Yeah, how would you say that compares with that course and this course? How much more advanced is this?
This is a lot more advanced. I mean, there's just a way more content. Yeah, and I think that course is tailored to more online, the micro stakes. But yeah, it's not. It doesn't have as much content at all, and definitely somewhat of a different approach.
Why don't we? Okay, let's talk. Let's close out. Let's finish this out with on this part of it, and then we'll maybe do one more hand example if you have one, as well as then we'll just answer some questions. How about? So we're here we did flop play turns, river, bluffing, and draws. So talk to us a little about this section.
Yeah, so we have playing turns, which is obviously super important, probably the toughest street to play in a lot of cases. So go through a lot of the theory, and then we have a ton of examples for both playing turn and playing rivers. There's going to be 2 parts for each of those for the hand examples, just because we want to go through as many scenarios as we can. And then there's also a section on bluffing and playing draws, so theory and hand examples. And obviously some of these concepts, they're going to overlap between the different videos, so we're really trying to hammer down the points as we go. So yeah, bluffing, playing draws, and then the last section there is multi-way and limped pots, which is obviously really common, what you want to be doing when it's limped, when you're in the blinds or you limped in, and then playing deep theory as well, which is really important. Different adjustments you want to be making when it's 300, 400, 500 big blinds deep. You want to be making some adjustments with your pre-flop starting ranges, and then also post-flop, you want to be concerned about not getting it in as light, obviously, and then trying to play a lot of pots in position is going to be really key in those spots. And then the last video is the bluff catching theory, which kind of ties everything together. So going through just a bunch of the main points you want to be thinking about when bluff catching, because that's going to be really important for your win rate as well, right? Is when you can get pretty good at putting the pieces together and then making the right calls or folds on the river is just so important, as you know.
Yeah, I think it taught for me. It's interesting because some of this stuff with having what blockers and certain things in your hand that can really make a huge difference. It's fascinating stuff and it's fun. These are fun things that you get to learn, which is a lot of this is stuff that it could click. It could be 1 or 2 of these sections that you're just not an expert in or you've missed, and it clicks. You're like, wow. And it could be the difference between you being a break even or slightly losing to a mildly crusher player. I think it's exciting because if we were all great and there was no way to improve, it'd be disappointing. The fact that you don't know a lot of this stuff or haven't heard of it or aren't clear on it, that's a good sign. If you're doing it, poker, you like it, it's fun, and there's ways you can improve, I think it's great. And I want to thank the Hoodie Done 203 with a Twitch Prime sub. Thank you so much. 6 months in a row, man. Appreciate you with that. The Hoodie Done 203. Hope you're doing well. Ravik said, when studying the masterclass, I got the most benefit from writing all my notes down. Hopefully that helps for people trying to retain info from the course. That's really good advice. Do you have any tips on that to how to study in terms of watching it? Is there any ways like with the Discord group, or what would you say is some of the better ways to go through the course and apply what you're doing?
Yeah, I think definitely taking notes and then reviewing them, and then not moving on from a section until you're really comfortable with the knowledge. And then for each section, you could do some homework and try to get, maybe 1 or 2 hand examples and then post them in the Discord, because you're going to get a lot of feedback. We're going to be there full time in the Discord as well, along with other Raise Your Edge coaches. So there's a ton of value in that. And I think the main thing is to just let go of your ego and not worry about, I think a lot of people worry about posting hands that people might ridicule them and shit like that, right? But
yeah,
I think the main thing is to get over that and realize nobody cares. We're all there to help you. And the more you put yourself out there, the faster you're going to learn about your leaks, right? And then, you can plug those leaks and then move on to other topics. But I think if you're kind of reluctant and you're not really, if you're not really willing to put your ego aside, it's just going to be a big hindrance on your long-term success. So, because the thing is, everybody makes mistakes. I think it's a big myth in poker that there's some crazy crushers, who are just robots who never make mistakes and are never in tough spots. They always know what to do, which is obviously complete bullshit, right? Like, right. Everybody has to review hands and everybody makes huge mistakes, and it happens a lot, right? So, you just have to realize that you're not alone in that, and everybody's at a different stage in their journey. So yeah, definitely the best thing is to try to get into a community where there's support. You can talk to other players, review hands, and it's just going to help you a ton. It's going to give you a lot of confidence going into your sessions.
Absolutely. Cody C54321, thanks for coming in, man. Pocket88 says, I studied the apprentice course in a very similar fashion, went on a 20K upswing thanks to RYE, can prove it. Love to hear that, guys. I have my own Discord channel, !Discord. Raise Your Edge has the Discord channel. I'm actually in there right now, and I just typed in the cash game. They have a cash game and also, I guess, cash game NL50 and higher, mixed games. There's all kinds of content on the Raise Your Edge Discord as well, guys, so I invite you to join there. Do we have a link to the Raise Your Edge Discord? I think we could get that in there. RYE, Vadron's in the chat. I believe someone could put that in. Fabi Stink, good to see you, man. I'm trying to shout out a few other people. Tough Spot, thanks for being here. Burn334, always appreciate the hoodie done with the sub. We have gone through basically the whole course. Toy Z321D. We're going to take a couple questions. I know we've been on for a while now. I'm used to long sessions, man. I hope we don't, if we cut off, if it goes too long, let me know. But this is a lot of fun.
All good.
And we hopefully can do more of these. Let's take a few questions from Twitter, guys. It is 5 gym bags and a $55. I'm going to give a $55 party poker ticket away plus the 5, and we'll give away a PT4. Why not? The Poker Tracker 4. How do you feel about HUDs online in general? I know that some of these sites are moving away from them now. I guess you said this is again mostly for live cash, but it obviously applies to everything. I mean, online anywhere to understand how to play cash game. But what do you feel about the online HUD situation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'll be good for bringing in outside players, right? Because there's just going to be less intimidation when they know that there's not people using HUDs. But obviously, if I'm playing, I do want to have that advantage. But I wouldn't mind if they got rid of them in a lot of circumstances. Because again, I think even just friends who used to play, you hear people talking about that players are so good now. Yeah, they have all the software that they can use. It's basically like cheating. That's what people think of HUDs, right? So I think it'll be good for the overall game.
Absolutely. Someone asking, what is Discord, Johnny the Seed? You can hit !Discord. If you guys have a question, generally there's a command. You hit the exclamation point and then that word, and we'll probably have something. What's up, Burnsy? Congrats on the news. I saw the reveal on you hitting a golf ball. Came out pink. Got a girl coming. Good to see you, my friend. Vlogs during WSOP, ask Fabi, STMK. Now, the thing is, this World Series, my baby boy is due in the next few weeks. Likely going to miss a good chunk of the series. I'm going to play the main. I'll go out there towards the end of the end of June, and then probably pop in and out. But it won't be the first year ever. I think I've gone, 32 since I'm 21. I've gone about 10, 11 years in a row of straight all the way through. It won't be the same. Thinking of selling my place in Vegas as well. I have a condo there. If anyone knows someone or if you're interested, give me a holler. I'm debating that because I am going to be very much into Florida, pretty much immersed here for a while now, and that anyway, so that if Mariano5, if you know anyone or if you're looking for a place, let me know, man. I got I basically got the dream bachelor pad in my mind, and then I met my wife at Burning Man a couple months later. I fixed it up, and then I never really used it. So it's there. It's had a tenant in there, but I'm considering selling it. So keep your ears open, or I don't know if you go out there in the summer or you know anyone that is looking for a place, guys. Keep me posted. I'm gonna probably consider that, even though it hurts me. Kind of feel like being a professional poker player. I want to having that Vegas pad is like it's part of me because I've been there for a while now and I really do like it. It was a different time, family and kids now come in. It's different than it used to be, but just throwing that out there. We're gonna go answer some questions on Twitter, but yeah, definitely message me if you know anyone. Let's see.
Do you still play any soccer, like men's league at all?
I do. I usually play in the summer in Vegas. I'm going to try to play here more now that I'm in a set place. It's been hard just being on a routine, but I'm hoping to play here and find some leagues down this way.
Nice.
This is some great questions I'm seeing already. Let's just go here and power through these. We've got some good ones. We've got to do the giveaways as well. Looks like we've got fair amount of questions, so let's just knock them out. Ghost of M, Legend, what's up, brother? Ask him how he feels the dynamic of different cash game stakes have been changed by regulars moving to the games from other games, such as 6-max hypers due to rake changes / SNE changes. So I'm not sure if you have my screen up or if you can see it. I can repeat it.
Yeah, I can see that there. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's definitely going to be more of an influx of online players. I assume in the States, especially after Black Friday. I mean, I guess the online's coming back, but I mean, you don't notice it too much. If you're playing the 1-3 and the 2-5 games, and probably up to 5-10, there's still just a lot of recreational players. So, I don't think you'll notice it too much. Maybe in the future, the games will obviously be getting tougher, but the main thing is rather than worrying about the games getting tougher, it's just you should look at yourself always and think, how can I improve and how can I maintain an edge, right? Because I think just due to the human condition, players are always going to make mistakes. And as we talked about earlier with the mental game, the players who are able to have a good mental game and have good execution, there's always going to be money to be made, especially in the live arena, because there's going to be players behind the curve, and then there's also going to be that edge where you can, steadily build your strategy and then also build your mental game. So yeah, I guess that's my take on it. I think live, especially live poker, I think it's going to be around forever. I don't see it going anywhere, and I don't see the edges going anywhere as well, to be honest, because there's just so many random players come in, or just people who are pretty lazy with their study, right? Even some regulars who just don't put any work into their game. So
for sure. I agree with that completely, especially live, man. It's just, even you see these tournaments, the numbers are crazy big. People are coming in, even people that are good, they don't always bring their A game, or they mess up. They're not, it's just an absolutely great spot to play live poker. And there is so many games, and now there's short deck, there's other games. It's just like, it's not going anywhere. Poker's timeless. Depends what, will it be no limit? Maybe it'll be, do you play any PLO?
I don't know. Maybe I'll start, but yeah, I think just strictly no limit now. Do you play PLO?
I play some. I was actually, so when I'm in the U.S., I sometimes play the No Rat Hole game. Have you heard of that on ACR? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's pretty crazy, but I stream there's so many good games on Party Poker I'm not as familiar with cash games, but I'll play a little 50, 100, No Rat Hole. It's basically $1,000 buy-in. You can't buy in less or more at 50, 100. And then if you leave, let's say you play let me see right now. I was playing the other day. Let me pull it up for a sec. I'm strictly Party Poker, but this guy just took the seat. I could have played for a sec, but yeah, I have like a 21K stack here right now. It's a 1K max buy-in, but say you take off for 5 days and then you come back, you have the same stack. So I'm just going to join waiting list. Actually, maybe I'll play a hand or two even on the side. But while I'm in the U.S., it's a decent option. Sometimes just pop in, or I pull up a table. So I have 2 good stacks at those tables. But I really don't play much cash online. I love playing live, and that's that's just what it is. But I agree with everything you're saying. And live cash is just it's just so good.
It's golden, man.
It's the best. It's golden. It is the best. Let's go through some of these questions. Will Raise Your Edge content begin putting more focus on no HUD stuff with sites beginning to talk about getting rid of HUDs? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't have too much info on that. We'll see what Ben says. But I'm not, do you have info on what they're going to be doing? Do you have any insight?
Yeah, let's see. I can show, what actually really good was, I did a podcast with Rob Young from here, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe. Let's see. I'm just going to pull it up here. He talked about it as well a bunch, but that they're looking to get rid of it even in as early as May. I think they're going to ban HUDs and others, as well as I believe I've heard Stars talk about it. I know some other people have talked about it, the other sites, but I think that's a pretty much almost an official thing that's happening soon. So if you guys want to hear more about it, it's there. But that is going to be the case, which is interesting. They're thinking about even resetting player names. So everyone would have a new name. Crazy. So it's going to be a big shift.
I play on Bodog sometimes on the zone poker there.
Okay.
I think it's the same as Ignition or Bovada, same thing, but there's no HUDs on the zone there, which is kind of cool though, because when you're playing, you don't have to worry about it. It's a good place to practice as well for playing live. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. We'll see how it all pans out. But do you have fears that there'll be ways around it where some players will be able to actually have HUDs and then have a huge advantage? They're obviously obviously thinking about that. But
yeah, they're going to do the best and try to figure it out. You know, it won't be perfect, but that's true though. I mean, that's the risk you open up, right? Like if you take it off, but then like 2% are using it.
It'd be
be a bit of a mess. So I think they're, you know, it's always a game of cat and mouse trying to figure it out. So let's see, maybe I'll play a hand or two here. Let's see. I just sat down. So I got a 21K stack. This game's it's just similar to me. In these type of games, it's all about game selection. Like here, it's actually looks pretty good because I got position on the big stack who has 25K. No one else really has a big stack, and it looks like the game just like you see people generally in poker. It's not a good sign when people
start
sitting out,
there.
right? Like that's like when you realize maybe the game's not quite as good. But yeah.
Sorry, how long can you keep your stack? Like if you just leave for like 6 months, your stack stays on there?
No, it's 1 week. So it's a 7
it's 1 week.
7 month. I'm sorry, 7 days. So if you come back anytime at all, and it doesn't. I don't know if I don't want to really play while I'm doing this to answer some questions. But yeah, again, I'm like 98% on party. I sometimes mess around here from the U.S. on this, and then it's a it's a fun game. But I'm going to let's take these questions here. They have for 510 as well. They have like the 510 level. It's kind of cool concept. I actually suggested the party poker to get that because it makes like there's guys with 300, 400K stacks there. So like sometimes the game gets really deep. But anyway, so that is an interesting little format. Let's try to knock some of these. Softest room in Vegas for 510. Any idea on that?
No, I don't go down to Vegas often. That'll probably be one for you.
Okay. Let's see. I actually don't know. I mean, Aria has good games. I know the win pops off. I think they have uncapped stuff as well. So I would say probably win or Aria. Ask him, managing bankroll an online cash game. Tips for managing an online bankroll. I guess that's kind of interesting because it is different, right? Online, it's like until you cash out, there's a little bit of a funny thing with that because it's like not necessarily real if you don't, and maybe there's a way to talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend super conservative bankroll management. That's just for me personally, though, as we talked about earlier. But I mean, I use personally at least 100 buy-ins for cash, which is pretty nitty, but I think it definitely works well. But a lot of people suggest, something between like 30 and 40 to be safe. And it obviously depends on your skill level. And then also, your other financial situations, which obviously nobody knows, but you definitely want to have, if you're actually trying to play for a living, you want to make sure you have money outside of your poker bankroll, that you can live off for a number of months, right, to withstand the swings, because a lot of people just have their entire roll on the line and then they go through a shit swing and then they're just decimated, right, and then they can just never recover. So you definitely want to be smart about it.
Jungleman was on my podcast last week and he had like 5 million on full tilt when it went down. I mean, I was just like, dude, what? Like, I was asking him, like, what the hell? Like, what?
That's crazy.
Like, like put it in and out, keep $1 million or keep 2 million. I get it, but like, really, like that's your bank. That was like all your thing. So it's kind of crazy, man. You got to be smart in those spots. Jack163 says, I'd love to see more videos like this. I've just signed up another program, but I'm definitely going to be checking this out. Awesome, man. Good to hear. Good to see you, Hogs Bluff. Always appreciate the love. It's good to be back. Johnny the Seed. Where do you play party poker from in CA? They're asking me. No, I play party poker in Bahamas, Brazil, when I'm out of the country. So that's the thing. That's what I was saying. I play like 98%, but I do flick on here once in a while and keep an eye if the game looks good. But I used to play on party poker from my past, and I can't create a new one, not even a Party Poker Live account BCM in the US. Yeah, USA is tough. I know they have it in Jersey. West Virginia just passed. I mean, I think that's something interesting to talk about. What do you think about the outlook of poker in the next few years? I mean, you saw West Virginia just passed. Pennsylvania's on there. There's Michigan's back on the ballot. I know Illinois and New York are close. I mean, you get Michigan and a few other of these New York states come in. It could be a whole new, it could be like 2000. I don't know if it'll ever be like 2004 again, but if USA comes back full force, sports betting's back, it could be a whole nother deal.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I haven't paid too much attention to how the states are doing it, but I've always thought that about poker, just the way the game is, that I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's another poker boom, because it's such a great game. And even in different parts of the world, right? If it opens up out in Asia, or back in the States, as you say, I think there's just a ton of opportunity, and people just love to, the combination of the gambling and, the skill and the luck and the incomplete information. It's just such a great game, right? So I think there could definitely be another boom.
Absolutely. Harbs asks, if you notice a player 3-bet a linear range out of the big blind rather than a polarized range, how can you best exploit that?
I would start adding more 4-bet bluffs and just flatting less often in general, because if somebody's betting, if somebody's 3-betting a polarized range, we want to be doing a lot more flatting, because if you're throwing in too many 4-bet bluffs or too much 4-bet for value, you're just forcing a lot of the weakest parts of his range to fold, right? So you want to be calling with a lot of the middle portion of your range and then playing pots in position. But if he's playing a linear range, then you can definitely throw in some 4-bet bluffs, to force folds from the bottom of the linear range. But you also want to be careful, because especially in a live game, when somebody's playing a linear range, oftentimes it means like queens plus, you know what I mean? So right. In that case, I would recommend having no 4-bet bluff range and just continue with hands with high implied odds, like pocket pairs, good suited connectors, suited broadways, and then suited aces. Really careful with the offsuit hands, because that's a big leak I see as well, especially out of position. Guys calling 3-bets with like king jack off, or like king queen off from middle position versus a 3-bet, and that's definitely a good way to lose a ton of money, especially in these games where the 3-bet ranges are so nutted usually.
Right. So even in a hand like king queen off would be a great 4-bet candidate, but even in a lot of these spots, it's just better just to fold, because they're gonna have ace king plus, and you're just, unless you have a read, or if you got someone who knows who's capable and out of line, that's a good hand to do it with. But I get it. It makes sense. I agree completely, and that's like why it's such a big advantage if you know how to play and know how to exploit these things. It's massive. Actually, I was just looking at here's the PLO. So just to show on the screen quickly, this is so I got 13K here, but look at this guy, it's 80, and again, it's 1,000 max buy-in. But like I've seen 400,000 stacks. So I'm asking Party Poker to get this on. I think it's a really cool idea, something they do. ACR gets a interesting rap a bit, but they actually have they do the cage live and online. It's kind of cool. They have this no rat hole, which is a very interesting idea.
Right.
I think they do some fun stuff, but they've got given a hard time. It's tough now. Like Party cleaned out a lot of bots. The ACR came out and said they got rid of some bots, refunded money, but it's a bit of a complicated situation, the whole thing. It is I think that's, like you said, the ecosystem online, you got getting rid of the HUDs, cleaning out bots, trying to find ways to make it an even playing field. I don't know if we'll ever get back to where it used to be, but they're definitely aware of it, and they're like, look, see, this is what I'm talking about. So like here, this guy's got 294K at a 50, 100 game. And the game kind of comes in and out, but yeah, it's interesting.
What do you think about the Run It Once?
Run It Once, they're the new site.
Yeah, okay. Have you played the poker on there?
I did. I streamed a little for them. Checked it out. I thought it was cool, but I just think it's really hard when you start talking about finding a way to break in. You need to have liquidity. You need to have a bunch of players, and like they say, have tournaments. It seems hard to find like a really good game. And it took a long time. I don't know. Have you tried it?
No. I just heard about it. It came out recently, but yeah, I guess I have no opinion on it yet.
Yeah, I tried it. Its software was good. It seemed fine, but again, it's just like, why would you play there versus any of these other sites with so much liquidity, so much bigger pools, and cool, like even like they have the fast forward, rush, zoom, these type of things that are fun and different. It's just like, I don't know, if you have an option to play. But even you can see here, like Party, there's not a lot of cash games. I'm just kind of going through here because I don't really, like I said, I don't play much cash online. Looking at like a 2550, like for the 6 plus, there's not a game running at 2550 right now. I guess they have 1025. Same thing. They have some heads up tables. No one's playing. It's like the cash games online. Just like here, it looks like there's 6 max, 2.5, 10 tables are actually running, but there's just not a ton of online cash games that are great, but we'll see if that can come back.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is too, it's so, I mean, especially the higher stakes cash is just ruthless right online, and those guys are just so good.
Right. That's the truth of it. That's exactly right. Kenticus, thank you so much, man. Subscribe 12 months in a row. That's here. What's up, man? Lots going on. We are here with Mariano5 from Raise Your Edge. We just went through the entire Raise Your Edge course, just talking about the different sections and what it offers. About 25 hours of content, give or take. And we have also replayed one of his hands, which was pretty cool to talk about. These are the type of things. I think the best way to learn is to really, because these are the type of examples where you get to see, you get to hear the reasons, the board textures, the reasons why you're doing stuff. These are how you get better at poker, not just talk. What would you say the breakdown between practice and play you would recommend for someone who's playing live cash, for example?
I mean, I think depending on your skill level and how much you've already studied, I think something like, say, study something like 20% to 25%, and then play 75%. And I think that's more true if you're just starting out as well. I would definitely recommend studying a lot. I mean, you want to get the volume in, but I think people fail to realize that you're also making money when you study, right? It's just that the money is not seen right away, but the long-term equity of study is huge. So it's not just all about putting in a ton of volume right away. You want to have that mix, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's just a critical part of the game. You got to be willing to do the work if you want to get better. You can't just play all the time. You got to talk to people. You got to review hands. All right, let's go through this. We've been on for almost 2 hours now. I think that's we've covered a lot here. Someone asking about stars. And honestly, I'm with Party Poker. I never really played cash games on stars. I don't know. I'm not familiar with them as well. I would imagine there's some games, but it's similar, not like an amazing games online just in general. And this course is geared towards 1325 live as well. And Acident saying, I think run it once. Oops, I have a camera rocking. It has good rake back deal and better streamers. I've seen a few streamers who play Rio run it once. Looks like plus there's a Zoom pool and ACR doesn't have that yet. I don't know. What's up, man? Money Max 67, good to see you. Pocket 88. Are bots something that actually happening on stars? I mean, everywhere. All the sites have them at some degree. So I don't know. Like, that's just a tricky question. It's always they're trying to help and do that to make the games fair. So I know all the sites are cracking down on that. All right, this is an interesting question to Mariano5. What do you look for more when bluffing, live tells or cards on the board?
Yeah, I'm more just looking at ranges and how they interact with the board. So looking for spots where you think players are capped, and then the player type is really important as well. There's a lot of player types I'm honestly just not even interested in bluffing, at least on the later streets, just because people are just such huge calling stations. So you want to make sure somebody's capable and that they are in a spot where their range is fairly capped, and also that you can have a lot of strong hands in your range. So, I mean, it's pretty complex to get into individual examples, but you want to be looking at spots where your range interacts with the board, so you can have a lot of really strong hands, and that they're capable of folding maybe some top pair type hands or second pair type hands. But I wouldn't rely too much on live tells, to be honest. If you're really good at that, then that's fine. But I think a lot of people get into trouble when they rely too much on that, because people can give off false tells, or people can just not really give off any tells, and you look too deep into something and then you make some call with a bad hand because you thought you had some read, you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't put too much stock in that myself.
Right. I agree. I agree as well. I think that's a misconception, and you got to be really careful with that stuff, unless it's like, maybe there's a guy out there that you might have like literally like a ridiculously nice tell, but it's just in general you gotta be really careful with doing that stuff. So I agree. Okay, that was a good question though. How much bankroll is needed to start a micro stakes cash game?
I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 buy-ins. Go for it. Just put a deposit in and try it out, because I mean, if you're starting at the micro stakes, it's not going to be, I mean, everyone's financial situation is different, but I assume it's not going to be a huge hit if you lose like, $50, right? So you can kind of be more aggressive at those stakes.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. I think we skipped one. If you think you have an edge, is it better to buy in deeper? Why or why not?
Yeah, it's definitely better to buy in deeper because you're just going to have bigger edges over your opponent. And obviously, the deeper your stacks, you're going to be able to play bigger pots with them, and they're going to be making bigger mistakes. So it's going to net you more money long term, right? So you want to be as deep as you can with the weak players.
Okay. What are the main fundamentals we should consider when we go in from MTTs to cash? I don't play a lot of cash, but looking to convert some of my focus on it. What skills are from MTT player are transferable to cash games? Good question, Simon Baker.
Well, you're definitely going to want to tighten up, in my opinion, in cash games, opening ranges a bit because, as we said, there's no antes and you're playing deeper stacks, so you want to be really careful in the earlier positions and really just try to play a lot of pots in position and just be looking to play strong ranges. I'm trying to think of other MTTs to cash. Yeah, and I mean, learning how to play in the deeper spots is going to be really important because they don't come up too often in MPTs. So that's obviously important. I don't know. Can you think of anything?
No, I think that's really sound advice. I would say the same. I'm really impressed with the questions here, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Like if you have an edge, it's like it just depends on your risk tolerance. It's like if you think you have an edge, if you how much, if you have a 55-45 edge in a spot, like how big are you going to go? Like Kelly criterion, what % of your net worth, if you think you have an edge, how does that go for you? So it just kind of depends, but it just makes sense. If you have an edge, you'd want to press what you're comfortable with as much as possible. I guess that is something that tourney players would have to get used to is not worrying about ICM or stack preservation, right? It's just looking at each individual spot, and if it's plus EV, you got to go for it, right? So absolutely
something you'd have to adjust to.
We got Reese Engel asking, who won a 55 ticket yesterday on Party Poker. How would you explain to a beginner in 5 words only to master live cash games? 5 words to master live cash.
A beginner, let's see. 5 words. Play tight, solid, aggressive poker.
There it is. I like
that.
Yeah, that's
simple as well. Don't worry about. I mean, it's more than 5 words, but don't worry about all the fancy play BS. Keep it simple. Play good value hands, and you're just going to earn the money because you let the other players make the mistakes, and you just stay out of the way. So not stay out of the way when you have good hands, but stay out of the way when you're in marginal spots or, trying to play wide ranges, etc.
Absolutely. I see here a question about, does this target specific stake levels like 1, 2, or 5, 10, or is it for all levels? And we have covered that. Basically, you're targeting the 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 5, but it does apply everywhere, of course. So that is a interesting question. That it was, again, of course, it'll cover anything, but it's for the 1, 3, 2, 5 in particular. Tough Spot saying, I've never used a HUD, and after taking 5 years off to work for work stuff, I'm considering using one. Tough Spot. Well, I think those are kind of going away, but it's good you don't want to be at a disadvantage. So if people are using them, definitely want to have that in your arsenal and how to understand it. We've got another question. What do you prefer, cash or online? I guess you mean live or online. And then we've answered that, you're live for you. Correct? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I play a bit online to practice as well, to get reps in and then do some study with solvers, but I definitely enjoy the live arena more.
What is the biggest pot you've ever won in a no limit cash game?
For myself, 6,000. So not huge, but I imagine yours is probably pretty large.
Yeah, I've had a couple big pots. I've like I said, that one I lost to Rob was one of the bigger pots I've lost. Pretty brutal one. I've played some 400, almost 500K pots that I've won as well. But I mean, I played 1K, 2K no limit before, so I mean that's not insane there. Not often, literally only a handful of times, but that was there's some big pots. And I wasn't buying in super deep, but it was still got the got the blood flowing, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's got to be. I was thinking of that too, about the allure of poker is that you get those adrenaline rushes too, right? This kind of, you don't think about that, but I think that's probably a big part of it when you're playing, is that you get to be in spots where, you get the nerves and the adrenaline going. So that, I think that's makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah, no question. Multi-tabling cash games, sometimes about playing 10 plus cash tables. What is important to know about multi-tabling? I guess that's obviously geared towards online, even though we're covering it. What would you say about that? What is important to know about multi-tabling if you're going to do that for cash?
I mean, you got to have good mental game for sure, because you're going to withstand some brutal swings in individual sessions, right? If you go on a bad run with that many tables, and you got to be focused. So I would make sure I get in a lot of exercise and get good sleep, and then obviously if you can use a HUD. I don't know if they're going away, but yeah, I mean, I don't have too much. I used to play tournaments where I'd play up to like 20 tables, but I've never played more than I think 6 or 7 cash games. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Same thing. I used to play a lot, but it's just you can't really focus as much. Pappy Winkle saying, when Rob would only run it once, ace versus king for 330, did you think about the insurance through someone else at the table, or is that not an option? I probably would have paid the 5% juice. That's a good question, Pappy Van Winkle. I've played in some home games where they actually offer insurance, the place, the home does. Home games I play, but in this spot it just didn't come up. I didn't even think about it, and I didn't ask. I'm sure someone would have. Now that you mention it, I literally hadn't thought of it, but that makes sense. Maybe I could have done that. It's not really something you think about. It's either generally people run it twice, or the game that offers it or not. It's typically, I don't really ever remember seeing at a place where someone offers it on the side for insurance, because the point is it either slows the game down or not. So the other players don't want you start saying, hey, will you take it? Then you got to do the math. Then that's not part of the dealer's job, and then it slows it down. It is a big pot for me, but relatively to the game and other people, it's just that's kind of the reason. So I now that you mention it, I would have maybe thrown it out there quickly, but I don't think I don't know that it would have worked, but maybe it would have. So maybe that hurts even a little extra late salt there. But yeah, I don't think typically you don't want to be doing that. It's same thing at a casino, right? It's you're not going to be. Have you seen that actually? I don't think at a casino you might not even be allowed to technically, but.
Getting insurance?
Yeah, if you're in a hand, you get an aces to kings, and it's a big pot, and you say it to your guy I guess you could do it on the side. I mean, you could have the guy. But
I mean, I've never seen that in my games, but.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So, how long is the sale code good for? Too high, good question. I'm not sure. I think until told otherwise, that should be pretty standard on for a while. I wouldn't worry about that. But yeah, no, it's all good, Pappy Winkle. It's a good question actually about the insurance doing that. It might react off bias how fast you respond to make a move. I'm not sure, but I'd expect it more programming and triggers. I don't know how much, though, man. I've never used one. I can't code. LOL. I don't know what you're talking about, and Ascendant, but it sounds like you're thinking at a high level. What's your favorite hand? Let's do that. Then let's do the giveaways.
Ace Jack suited. I mean, my favorite hands are aces, of course, but yeah, Ace Jack suited. That's the.
Ace Jack suited. All right, I like it. And you won some big pots with it, or it just seems to just been good to you over time, or what?
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess, man, I think I've won some big pots, and I just it just plays so well. It's just you always have a lot of options with that hand. So.
Okay, well that is for sure. That's one of those that falls in that tricky. That is one of those tricky hands, it's easy to play aces, kings, easy to play trash. Those are in the 7s, 8s, 9s, ace jacks, those type of hands. You can get in some fun situations and have to make some tough decisions.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see, we got the retweet giveaway here. So 5 people are going to win a Raise Your Edge gym bag. We'll do one $55 retweet. Is there another hand you want to cover to load up here? And then as I get this, is there any?
Yeah, I sent you a hand on Skype there.
Send me another one. Let's see here.
Let me check out.
Hope you guys are having fun. We are again with Mariano5 out of the Raise Your Edge course, the live cash, mastering live cash. It is a very, very manageable, not crazy long videos, a little less intimidating maybe than the tournament side of it all, but there's definitely some detailed info. It's just one of those things, it's it's one of those spots where if you want to do the work, this is way that it can, instead of going to peel solver and all this other crazy stuff, this is going to be a little cleaner, probably easier to process, and again, geared toward the 1-3-2-5 level. So let's go ahead and play this hand here. It looks like the 10-8 of hearts, always a fun hand, and you're in the big blind. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so 2-5 game, and really tight regular opens up for 4x is the standard open in my game. And then loose passive, bad player calls, so really easy to defend for me here. I don't see any reason to be trying to squeeze here, especially with a loose passive player. I would just be going with the linear range.
Okay.
So pretty good flop, and tight reg bets out like full pot. So I'm thinking here now that has a really strong range. Like he's not gonna be betting hands like just ace king, ace queen, just random shit, right? Or even like 9x or pocket eights. Maybe occasionally pocket eights, but I really put him on hands like ace 10 plus here, almost always.
Okay.
So, the loose passive guy folds. I think you got to press play there.
Okay. So you call.
Oh, is it going here?
I paused it.
Oh, okay. No, sorry. Yeah. So I call. I think on the flop, check raising is definitely an option. But I just call, and then, it gets interesting on the turn here. So I think versus this player type, the main thing to realize here is that the 9 hits our range way harder than his, right? Because he doesn't have much 9x when he bets that flop, but I have a lot of 9x. I can have hands like queen 9 suited, jack 9 suited, 9-8 suited. I could still have a hand like 7-9 suited or 10-9 suited that I didn't check raise the flop. So equities and the nut advantage shift a ton on this card. So I think versus this player type, it's a really cool option here to lead out, which I did, and expecting not expecting a ton of fold equity on the turn, but it'll come down to, so I bet out about half pot here. And the main thing, not the main thing, but another thing to think about is that if I had a hand, say like ace 9 or whatever 9x I had, I definitely want to be leading his turn a lot with those, because especially against a tighter player, he's going to be checking that turn a lot with his overpairs, because he knows that card is pretty bad for his range and pretty good for my range. So I definitely want to be going for the lead when I do have 9x, so I can start putting some good bluffs in there. And a hand like mine, even though it's a head, sometimes he could have a hand like queen jack. My hand I consider it a bluff at this point, but it's a really good bluff because it blocks pocket tens, which is the main thing. So I lead the turn, and then on the river here, I just end up shoving in, which is, I would only do this against this particular player type, who is the really tight regular, who I know is just going to overfold his overpairs. I think this is a pretty interesting hand, which doesn't come up too often, but if you can find these spots to really put a ton of pressure on the tight players, they're just going to be overfolding a ton. Like I put this through a solver as well and did some node locking, and I just found that even if he's calling something like 30 or 35% with his jacks plus, it's just going to be printing money, right? And I think realistically in-game versus an overbet like this, players are folding like, 80, 90% of the time. This particular player type at least. So
that's interesting though, talking about that. Like, so if this was against the loose passive player and in a similar spot, if he was there, you wouldn't necessarily, that makes that, like in that particular instance, it makes a big difference on someone who you could actually factor in. You're trying to get to fold an overpair here sometimes versus someone who's loose passive probably is just never folding an overpair.
Yeah, exactly. Like versus a loose passive player versus most of the players in the pool, you just be making money there, because they're just never folding. But against this player type, if you can find these type of spots, it's a pretty cool option just to put the pressure on, because people also you don't see a ton of overbets in these games, especially in the 1-3 games. Players really aren't used to it, so they have a tough time reacting. So you can definitely get both, as we talked about, a lot of value with your value hands against the some of the regulars and the looser players, and then against the tighter players, you can put on a ton of pressure and just force them off a ton of hands. So I think this hand works really well because, as I said, it blocks tens full, and I can just have so many good value combos here.
That's cool. It's interesting. That's definitely a really interesting board and situation. But so you don't know. I mean, this isn't someone you like talk to afterward or somehow found out. I mean, it's just a guy you plays with, you play live, and didn't come up. I mean, you probably aren't it doesn't. But did you get the sense in that hand? Do you remember? Do you think he folded an overpair, or just maybe a jack queen suited or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think he had an overpair majority of the time. He could have a hand. Like, I think he bets the flop with king jack and queen jack suited, but other than that, I don't see any bluffs, and I think once he calls turn, he just says, yeah, overpairs a ton. So I felt pretty comfortable shoving in there.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, so those are two cool hands. I see Burnsy asking if you had to play live or online only, what should you choose and why? I think I know the answer, but we'll answer for Burnsy. 23?
Yeah, definitely live.
Could that shift if U.S. poker gets back and things blow up? It's just convenient wise, right? It's just more profitable, more fun. But I mean, the games are tougher right now online.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could see myself playing online as well again, but I just find I can put in more volume and it's just more relaxing, and the social aspect, it's just nice.
Absolutely. It is fun. It's just something really cool about live cash. I love it. I can't wait to study this. Thank you so much, Mariano5, ladies and gentlemen. That is him as we're looking on. That is a very, very elaborate course, really cool, and I am, again, excited to be a part of it, excited to do this, and would love to talk some hands and strategy on and off future streams. Of course, guys, make sure you can hit !RYE. They have the mindset course. Have you done some of the mindset course as well? I know there's a section in the cash.
No, I haven't done it.
Yeah, I haven't done it either.
But it's definitely has amazing reviews. It's an amazing course, so ton of power in the mindset, as we talked about a lot.
Yeah, I am excited to do it all. There's only so much time in the day, but it's fun to play, fun to study. Find extra time, sleep an hour less, 30 minutes less. Sneak it in, guys. Get it done. Please give us reviews on the. We're going to put up a YouTube video of this session. I would edit it and put on there, as well as the Discord. There's an active Raise Your Edge Discord chat. I have a Discord chat with Raise Your Edge folder, so I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you get a chance to check it out. Mariano25, good to see you. Burnsy, thanks again. Thanks everyone. Vadran, the GOAT, Ghost of M, all the people that stop by. We will be in the mix coming up here, so I'll see you guys on a Twitch stream soon. Podcast coming out very soon as well, and we'll let you run, and I'm going to shut it down here from Miami. Thanks for the time, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, Mariano.
All right, thanks, guys. Take it easy.
All right, fresh out of the lab here. Freshly out of the course from Mariano5 out of Raise Your Edge. We just did a 2-hour Twitch video live with him, breaking down the course and how it works, the live cash course. Targeted towards 1-3-2-5 live games, but of course you can apply it to anything. High stakes, good games, online as well. Of course, tough, but really think it's a really valuable thing. So if you guys want to check that out, you can go to the show more and see the Flow Cash discount code. There's also some other info there, and if you want to know about Discord and joining the Raise Your Edge YouTube or Discord channels, as well as our own, all the info is in the show more. So guys, I hope you enjoyed it. That was a lot of fun. Really big thanks to Mariano5 taking the time. Hopefully do more of that. Going to be playing live in Montreal at the Millions, the Party Poker Millions, and Playground Poker. That will be around May 20th. I'll arrive, the main event. They got some other good stuff. Should be a lot of fun doing a special streamer event on the 22nd there. Got my baby boy coming soon. Gonna try to get on the Twitch. You can hit the subscribe to Twitch via the link below in the show more. If you guys aren't familiar with Twitch, that's what this recording is from, and I hope you guys are gonna have an amazing experience with trying the course. So thank you. Leave feedback, comments, hit the subscribe. It's free on YouTube, and we'll see you soon. Raise Your Edge and Party Poker. A lot of love, a lot of grinding. We'll see you on there. Good luck out there.